Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to what is now the second of our new webinar series for busy lawyers. These new monthly webinars are designed to bring you practical information in 20 to 30 minutes so that you can implement it immediately into your practice. And I'm excited to have Adriana Linares, who is a law practice consultant and legal tech trainer with her company LawTech Partners. And I promised I wouldn't embarrass her by reading her entire bio. But Adriana is a tech wizard, and she's currently the chair of the American Bar Association's Tech Show Conference, which is March 15th through 17th. Am I correct?
Yes, please come.
Right.
Everyone come.
Excellent conference. So today she'll be giving you some tips on using Outlook, and she'll provide these tips in a real-time screen share. So feel free to follow along. Hold on a second here. We're getting some feedback here. Okay.
Somebody's going down some steps.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're good now. We got everyone muted. So before I turn it over to Adriana, I do want to let you know that we'll have time at the end to ask questions. And so if you would like to, throughout, put any questions you have in the chat box, I'll then relay those to Adriana at the very end. And Adriana, I will let you take it from here.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for having me, Heidi. This is exciting. I do a lot of training on different topics, but Outlook is always one of my favorites because I live and die by Outlook, even though a lot of people try to use Gmail or some other interface. I think it's really hard to be efficient in a web interface, but I use Google Apps for Business, so I actually just bring my Gmail into Outlook. So that's something I always like to say out loud to people is Outlook's just a vehicle for whatever email service provider you use. So if you have GoDaddy or Gmail or obviously a Microsoft Office 365 account, whatever it is, you can usually very easily bring it into Outlook. I'm going to do this session in Outlook 2016. It's the latest desktop version. Just about every single tip I'm about to give you would be good for versions of Outlook that are much, much older than this, even 10 years old, which is one of the things that's so interesting about teaching and training on Outlook is that most of the efficiency tips that I have are not even new. They've been around for 20 years. So hopefully this will be helpful to you. I'll rattle on for a few minutes with some tips, and then I will stop and see if there's any questions. Hopefully I can answer the questions that you have. So what you're looking at now is my Outlook. And I want to point out too that I have multiple email accounts that come into this Outlook. So that's another really good thing about Outlook is I can have multiple inboxes. So if you look over here where it says favorites, so underneath the ribbon, I have a section called favorites. And up here I've got an inbox. You can see it's my Google Apps for Business. I just called it Google Apps. I can call it whatever I want. The second inbox, if I click on it, it's going to switch to an email that the whole company uses. It's the email address for team@lawtechpartners.com. And then I've got outboxes, and I've got an admin outbox. And so I have 4 different email addresses that I have inside Outlook. A. Linares, which is my main team, which is the email that we share in the company to keep an eye on projects. Admin, which is actually an email address that I use specifically and only for payments, and it's sort of double secured. So anytime a QuickBooks payment comes in or I'm sending out invoices and stuff, I send that to and from admin. So I keep an eye on that inbox. And then I just have a random inbox, which is training at LawTech Partners. And that's where I send. This is the one you're looking at now. You'll notice in here that one of the things I get are a lot of notifications, LinkedIn messages, newsletters, membership information. So one of the best Outlook tips I can give you is to not just have one email address. When I look at lawyers' inboxes and I try to help lawyers manage email, I find that if you're only using one email, you're mixing really important client information, colleague communications with silly things like LinkedIn notifications and Facebook notifications. So I'm very, very diligent about separating what I consider my A-client work with the rest of my business. So it's very easy to do in Outlook. I also do keep these outboxes up here. Because you know how every once in a while Outlook just glitches and you hit send and you don't realize that it didn't go? Well, it's easy for me to see if there's something stuck in the outbox because there'll be a 1 right next to any one of these outboxes. I've also trained my eye to sort of really keep an eye on what's going on over here. So I have, and I can order these. I can just drag and drop these and put these in all my inboxes up at the top, and then all the outboxes are down here. So this favorite section is a great place for you to drag and drop your favorite folders. You'll see that down below I have the full inbox. So here's the Google Apps folder. If I click to expand it, you can see that there's the inbox, there's the draft, there's sent items and everything else. Here's the one for admin. But the truth is, I spend very little time in all these subfolders for all these inboxes or even just any other subfolder. So what you can do is take any favorite. So let's say I'm going to go to my inbox here, working on a hackathon for the ABA Tech Show. I want to move this up to my favorites. Just going to drag and drop it right up to the favorite section. So favorites is just a shortcut, a place for you to keep those inboxes or those specific folders that you access, or maybe even drag and drop into the most. So we're looking at my training inbox. You can see that I have 1 unread item in here. Inbox for team, I have 2, and then for my main one, I have 15. So that's all very visually helpful. I can quickly glance over there, see what I have kind of cooking and what's coming in. I particularly get excited when there's a little number next to the admin inbox because that probably means a payment has been received. So it's really exciting to see a number over there. So let's talk about the rest of what the interface looks like, and I can give you a couple of tips besides just dragging and dropping favorites into the favorites section. So of course up above you've got the ribbon that's been around. It was introduced I think in version 2007 of Office, 2010 of Outlook. Hopefully everyone has figured out how the ribbon works, and maybe you don't even spend that much time clicking on stuff on the ribbon because of some of the other ways that you can act on your inbox. So, you know, by right-clicking on any item, you generally get all of the same buttons, features, and functions that you do from the ribbon, and I think that sometimes that can be more efficient than hunting and pecking for buttons up here. The other thing that's really helpful to know is that not just in Outlook, but of course in any Office application, there is up here at the very, very top what's called the Quick Access Toolbar. And this is where I put the buttons, features, and functions that I access the most. So I pretty regularly come into, let's say I come into View, and I'm pretty regularly turning on and off my reminders window. So I click and my little reminders window pops up. Hold on, let me pull it over here because I like to see my list of reminders. Well, it takes 2 clicks to get to View, and it gets to go from View to reminder windows. So any other button that you access frequently, how about this Go to Meeting one? Let's say I'm regularly coming over here to schedule a Go to Meeting. Well, on any of these buttons in the ribbon, and this applies for Word and Excel and PowerPoint too, you can always right-click on them, on one of them, just a simple right-click, and you'll see the option to add to the Quick Access Toolbar. When I choose to add a button, feature, or function to the Quick Access Toolbar, just puts it right here at the top, at the so-called Quick Access Toolbar, so I don't have to go hunting and pecking for those buttons. So now I can just click and my reminders would pop up if I had any. So you've got your Quick Access Toolbar, you've got your ribbon, and fortunately in Outlook there aren't a lot of ribbon options. You've got send, receive, folder options, view options, add-ins. I turned on developer. You probably won't see that and you won't need to. So for the most part, Outlook's pretty compact. There's not a lot of, you know, buttons and stuff, but you can certainly add. So you can see I definitely have a bunch that I'm constantly adding to the Quick Access Toolbar. All right, so Quick Access Toolbar, ribbon in the middle, favorites and folders on the left, and then of course you've got your main inbox. So a couple of things that you can do to really maximize the way Outlook is giving you information, which what we try to do every day is maximize screen real estate here. And if I came upon this inbox the way it is in the state that it's in right now, I would think, wow, we can really fix this up. So a couple of ways that you can do that. So number one, the font is very tiny. And as I've gotten to the age of 40 and beyond, I get very frustrated by tiny font. And the truth is that the font on my watch, my Apple Watch, is bigger than the font here. So one of the things you might want to do is change your view. So the way you change the font size for your inbox here is by going to the View tab. That makes sense, right? I want to change the way I'm viewing my inbox. And then you're going to see a button for View Settings. I'm going to click on it. And then View Settings brings up this other dialog box that has a bunch of stuff in it. And we could talk all day long about the different options in here, but I'm just going to focus on making that font bigger because already my eyes are hurting looking at that wee tiny font. The way you change it is by going to the unobvious Other Settings. It says Fonts and Other Table View Settings here. So I'm going to click on that. This brings up, of course, another dialog box. Column font is set to 8 and row font is set to 8. What does that mean? Column font is literally the word from because that's the column heading for this, table. Subject and received. So those are at 8, and that's fine. I don't even really need those to be much bigger, but I'm going to go ahead and make them a little bit bigger just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to change it to 10. And if you like having weird fonts to look at, you can pick any other font in here that you would like. So again, just for training purposes, I'm going to change the column header to Ravy 10. I wouldn't normally do this, but that's fine. The one that really matters is going to be row font. So back here where you can see Maureen McCardle's name, that's a row. So the way the inbox is made up, it's columns and rows. So I'm going to click on row font, and I like that to be much bigger. Actually, I'm going to make it 14. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to leave it at this font that I have, Segue. It's fine. Then while I'm in here, I'm going to go ahead and change my message preview font. I'm going to make it 12 or leave it at 12. I don't have the message preview turned on, but I'm about to. And that's another tip I'm going to give you is just to make sure you always have your message preview turned on. So I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to click OK. And ta-da, my inbox is immediately easier to look at. You can see up here that cute little Ravy font that I made the column headings, which is fine. Those are hard to read, but up there, like I said, I don't even look at those. And obviously my font has gotten bigger. The next thing I want to do is just, stretch out some of these columns so that I'm not leaving so much unused white space right here in the middle. And I'll show you a couple of really cool columns that you might consider adding that can be sort of more efficient use of this space here. The first thing I want to make sure and show you is over in the left-hand column, if you're showing this column, if you see a little white envelope with an arrow pointing back to the left, that means I replied to that email. So you know how sometimes you're looking at your inbox and you wonder, did I reply or did I not reply? I can't remember. Of course, if I click directly on this email, inside my preview over on the right, it's going to tell me that my message has been replied or forwarded, so I can see it there. But I can also very quickly see here in my inbox to the ones that I've already replied.
Yeah.
Oh, Heidi, do you want to mute that person? Where are they? Oh, there we go. Hopefully that worked. Okay. So those are little visual cues to help remind you what you've done. And of course, over here in the preview, which I'm going to show you how to turn that on and off in case you don't have it on or off, it always will tell me. And then, of course, you can click. Don't forget, you can click where this bar says this message has been replied or forwarded to. You can always right-click on that, and it will pull up all the other messages. And it helps you do a search to find the other messages that you may have replied or forwarded to. All right, so I wanted to give you a tip for adding a column here that might be helpful. My column headings right now are from, subject, received, and size. The size column always bothers me because at this point, I don't need to know the size of an email and I don't care. So I'm going to take that off my view so it's not even cluttering my view. And the way you pull it off is you're simply going to click on the word size and simply pull the whole little column name box down until you see that black X, and I've removed that column. Then I'm going to remove sort of the received column over a little bit. So now I've got from, subject, received, and one of the other fields that is very helpful here is the to field or the CC field. So if you work in a larger law office where a lot of times you're either CC'd, or I used to work in really large law firms, and they would send the email to all firm or everyone, and generally those emails were not as important as the ones that were sent directly to me. So sometimes it can be helpful in sort of deciding which emails you're going to attack, which ones you want to see the to field. So the way you do that is I'm still in the view section of my ribbon. I'm going to click add columns. So you'll see that under view, add columns. And if you're taking notes, just remember to Google whatever version of Outlook you're using and add columns in case you're not using this exact same version. This is going to bring up all the column options I have. So from the left-hand side, I'm going to click on CC and I'm going to add it. Then I'm going to scroll down and find the to field. and then move it to the right-hand side of this window to add it, and then click OK. So now I've got the CC field and the to field, and you can also drag and drop these and put these in any order that makes the most sense to you. So you can see here that the email address that receives here is training. Someone named Chuck was copied on this. This one went to a bunch of people, and Tucker was copied, and so on. So this just gives me a better view of what my inbox looks like. Also, that message preview that we talked about a moment ago that I said I don't have it turned on, but I'm going to show you how to turn it on. You're going to look for the message preview option, and I can either show one line of a preview only in this folder, or that's, to me, isn't very helpful. I usually show 2 or 3 lines. And what that does is kind of like the iPhone. If you're used to looking at the iPhone, it gives you a quick little preview of what that email might contain, so that, again, you're deciding what needs attacking. Sometimes the whole message is contained in that one sentence, like this one right here. I just read it. I didn't have to open it. And they've added this handy little delete button, which, by the way, you can delete emails, everyone. Don't be afraid. I can delete from here, or from my home screen, I can choose to archive or delete this message, depending on whether I'm an archiver or a deleter. So this is very handy. I love being able to just scroll through here and just saying, okay, I delete, 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 delete. And I'm reading, sort of, again, assessing the importance of these messages and getting rid of them if I have to. I mean, when I can. Of course, you've got your preview pane over on the right-hand side. I love the preview pane because now it also has an inline reply. So from right here, I can click reply and say, great, thanks, let me know what she says. And I'm saving myself clicking, opening, and closing a message. So I hit send. Oops. Oh, I think I already deleted this one. Sorry. And I could just send it out and it's gone. I did actually delete that. It's just stuck there. Sorry. So I love the inline reply and forward. And here's another thing too. When you have multiple emails, if you do, the from button in any email, whether it's inline or popped out, is going to have a little downward pointing arrow where I can switch to send this from another email address. So that one came into my training at LawTech Partners, which is a bit generic. Now I want to reply to that sender with my main email address. I can just click the from field and hit send. I don't know why I'm getting that message. It's fine. So I love that. And of course, from here, I can also copy and paste anything without having to open the email. Another important couple of tips. You all have, of course, your calendar and your contacts. And generally what I do, I have 2 screens at this office. My office in Florida, I actually have 3 screens. And one of the main reasons I wanted 3 screens is because, as I mentioned earlier, I live and die by Outlook. I want my calendar on one screen. I want my inbox on another. And I do a lot of content, contact sharing, sending, shuffling, looking up. So I actually keep my contacts open all the time. And the way you can do that is by coming down to the little buttons at the bottom of your screen and right-clicking on any one of them and choose to open in a new window. So now I've opened a calendar window. So now I've got my inbox window, my calendar window, and then I'm going to right-click and open my contacts in a new window. So here are contacts. And the reason I wanted to show you this, other than the fact that now what I would generally do is spread these across all my screens, there's some great tips, great things that you can do. So let me just move around a couple of these. Let's pretend that this is 3 different screens that I'm looking at. Let's rearrange these a little bit so we can see everything. Okay, we're just going to pretend these are 3 separate screens. Okay, let's say I have an email that really is better suited on my calendar. So here's an email from this woman, Maureen, who wants some training classes. Well, I talked to her today, and I'm going to go to their office on December 12th to do some training. What I really want is all this information from the email on my calendar, because it helps me remember what we talked about, where I'm going, the address is there, everything is there. The easiest way to get this on my calendar is to simply click on the email and drag it onto the calendar on my other screen. Or I could just have done it, if you only have one screen, that's fine. You just drag down here to where the calendar window is open. It's going to bring the calendar forward. We decided I was going to come there on December 12th. So I'm just going to drag and drop that email onto this tiny 12 right here. You can drop it on the main calendar too, doesn't matter. And now all that information from her is conveniently trapped inside of my calendar appointment, which I want. And I would just rename this to classes at Omera. And then I just have to change the time. I'm going to be there, but all the information is captured. And then the other reason I really like this is if they've done me a favor of putting a good signature down here, can now very easily just copy and paste that address so that when I'm on my phone, on the way to this office, I can click to get the address if I'm not familiar with where I'm going. So also helpful, so that's a great tip for just moving emails. It leaves it in my inbox. I can leave it there, but the truth is I don't need it. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to go ahead and minimize the calendar to show you the next tip. So here's a person I have as a new acquaintance, as a business contact. I'd really like to add his contact information to my contacts. I'm also quite a stickler about always making sure that when I get a new contact, I immediately add them to contacts because inevitably I'm driving down the road and I want to call Brian Betron and I say to Siri, call Brian Betron. And Siri says, I'm sorry, I don't have a contact named Brian Betron. That drives me crazy. So I'm very diligent about adding them. In the same way that I added or moved or copied an email to my calendar, you can do the same with contacts. Now, it's a little more, the information is a little more disparate, but I'm going to show you how and why this is awesome. I'm going to drag Brian's email onto the word contacts. And what it does is it does me the favor of parsing at a minimum his name and his email address, which are kind of the main things. But he did do me the favor of including all of his information in the signature block, which I always appreciate. So now from his signature block, I can just drag and drop all this other information. And this isn't a copy and paste, and it's not a cut and paste. I'm just dragging it like this. I'm highlighting, and I'm putting it in mobile. And here's his website address. And this takes a minute, but I am always so happy later that I have done this. And then I can drag and drop his address over there. And then the rest of the stuff, I either delete it or oftentimes if it's nice to remember where I met this person, it was nice to hear you speak today, your content was interesting, that's nice, I leave that in there, especially if it was something like, oh, Adriana, I met you at the Boston Bar Conference. I leave it because what do I care? Now, of course, if I share this with someone, depending on which email service and sharing service you use, sometimes the notes go and sometimes they don't, so you want to test that. So if there's confidential or private information in here, you might not want to keep it. And then I save and close, and that information has been added to my contacts. Heidi.
Yes,
So
Adriana.
I went for 20, and I just noticed it's 11:24. Those were just some of my best fast use them immediately tips, but are there any questions that I can answer? If not, I can just rattle off.
Yes, you do have a few questions here.
Okay. Okay.
The first question that came in was, how do you create a favorites section?
So you shouldn't have to create it. You should see it, and it might be collapsed. Or what you can do is go to any folder and right-click on it and see if you have the option to add to favorites. And that might either make it easier for you to see it or right-click, show in favorites. Sorry, it actually says show in favorites. And then you might want to make sure too, let's see if under view, is there any, oh yeah, and here's another one. Under view, look, under the folder pane options, I have favorites checked. So that might be the other reason you don't see favorites. It's just hiding. Next question.
Okay. Okay, the next question is, once you set up the columns in one folder, is there a way to copy that setup into another folder so you don't have to set that up each time? Yep.
Great question. So the way you would do that is, so I've set this one up. Remember, I've got the Ravi up here and blah, blah, blah. If you go to change view, so I'm back to the view tab, I've gone to change view, you can choose to save current view as a new view. You can see I have one called AL view, Adriana Linares' view. And then you can very quickly apply it. So I'm going to click Save View as New View. I'll call this Ravi, whatever. And then I click OK. So now I could go to any other folder, like the team folder down here. Where was I? or any other folder, sorry, down here. Send items, maybe we'll just put in drafts. And then go back to view, change view, and apply the Ravi view. Yep. Next question.
Okay, next question is, how can you increase the font in the review pane?
Okay, so I don't know that you can actually. So, but the only place it might be would be under view, reading pane, options. No, you can't. Sorry. That one's part of just your overall big view, desktop setting views. Sorry. Okay. And it kind of changes too. Like, it's weird for me. You'll see that it depends too on the format that the email came in, how it displays in the preview pane. Sorry.
Okay.
What else?
Okay, so we have a couple of specific questions just in terms of it looks like this person's setup and what their display looks like. One person has commented that they don't have the reply all, etc.
Oh, okay. So that just might mean you have an older version of Outlook that came out. I'm pretty sure. So this is 16. I know we had it in 14. So you're probably in 10, 7 or older and you won't have it, which gives you a really good excuse to upgrade. The Office 365 for $8 to $12 a month. You'll always have the newest version of all the Office products, and you can put it on 5 machines. It's the greatest thing that has ever happened to small businesses and especially law firms. So go look at Office 365 and upgrade.
Okay. So talk a little bit about the archive folder and how that can be used.
So that's a function of the fact that I use Gmail. It has an archiving feature, so that's really going to depend on who your email service provider is and whether it archives, if that button is there. And then 2, I noticed this was kind of interesting. I was in my training inbox today, and I went to archive this, and it said, "We don't have an archiving folder. Shall I create one for you?" And I thought, yes, go ahead and create it. And then it will create an archive folder for me. And now you can see, I don't know if you noticed because it did it pretty quickly, it actually created an archive folder for me and moved it. So the thing is, it's still taking up your same inbox space. It's still available. It's just moved it out of your inbox. And then if you're using something like Google Apps or maybe Office 365, then I can always go to Gmail or go to Outlook.com and still, again, they're all still inside the same folder. And you might be asking too, thinking about the old days when we would archive into PST files. Your inbox would get too big, and somebody would say, "Well, you've got to archive all those," and they create a whole separate file, a whole different Outlook file. What does PST stand for? I forget, something about a personal storage. You can still do that. Those old-fashioned, what you're thinking about, those old-fashioned archiving options are still in here. You just have to go into settings. But generally, it's just creating another folder that's a direct part of your inbox called archive.
Okay, so how about in terms of subfolder management? Do you have suggestions in terms of, how many folders, what types of folders?
I'll tell you, my best suggestion is get a case management system that allows you to put those emails, if you're going to be filing them to a folder, that means they're part of some logical family, which generally is a client or a matter. And you should really, all lawyers today should be using a proper case management system that allows you to file your emails into some subfolder. For Outlook, best option, without a doubt, like there's no better modern solution for file document management, is a product called NetDocuments. It's about $50 a month per user. It's cloud-based document management, and it has the best interface with Outlook. If you're using something like Clio, which is a modern cloud-based practice management program, there's a third-party tool called Click to File that can help you with that. And then if you're using an older program like a Time Matters or a PC Law, those generally have that click button that files them directly into the case management system. So my best advice is please get a proper case management system that helps you organize your emails with the rest of your files. Other than that, if you don't have that, then less is more. I mean, I see people with 80 folders, and then it's just a lot of mayhem organizing, but I don't really have any good straight out tips for organizing subfolders. I think subfolders are crazy. Those emails should be filed where everyone else that needs to work on the matter can access them through a case management system.
Mm-hmm. Okay, no, I think that's good advice. So in terms of the archive folder, you're basically just using that as a way to get emails out of your inbox, so they're not just sitting in your inbox.
Yeah,
and saved in a way,
right? And it's also not deleting them, right? So it's just kind of moving them to this archive folder. But don't forget, there is always that whole archive separate file. The good thing about having the archive folder inside the inbox is that when I'm on my iPhone, I can still access and search that archive folder because it's part of the same inbox as opposed to those detached PST files that I bet whoever is asking about is thinking about those old PST files. And I'll tell you something else too. With the newer versions of Outlook, they have greatly increased the capability of Outlook storage space. So in the old days, let's say Outlook 2003 and 7, we had like a 2 gig limit, and then Outlook would slow down and it would get heavy, and that's when somebody would say, you've got too many emails, you've got to archive, and we would have to create this whole separate archive. With 2010, they completely redesigned Outlook, and your inbox can be much bigger now, like tens of gigs. So you won't run into the same slowness issues and performance issues, and it's easier to keep that archive folder inside the whole sort of container that is your inbox.
Okay, and some of those, and what someone just commented is that some of those PST files are very large.
Yeah, right. And that's because Outlook used to have a maximum of 2 gigs. Okay. And so those PST files, like technically the difference was if you had a limit, you probably had Exchange, right? Or it was just too big. So those PST files could be bigger because they weren't being sort of accessed pretty regularly through Exchange or locally, and they just work differently, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so what your recommendation is basically to offload those emails onto a practice management program.
Right. Well, my first advice is get Office 365.
Okay.
Right? And then because that's helpful, and your storage space, get Office 365 because you get the latest version of Outlook, which has a greater capacity anyway. And then on top of that, you should really have a proper case management system. All lawyers should. I mean, it's just reduces malpractice risk. Whole nother webinar.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So we have a couple more questions.
Sure.
So this question is in terms of security. So the question is, for security purposes, shouldn't you keep the preview pane off?
Oh, so I usually mention that, but I thought maybe I didn't have to. So there used to be a problem with the preview pane where I think this was many years ago, so whoever's asking that is remembering something from a long time ago, where viruses could have possibly launched from the preview pane. That hasn't been an issue for many, many years, and I haven't heard of it being an issue lately. Obviously, Outlook is much better developed these days, and it's unlikely that is to happen. But you should also still be careful what you're clicking on and what you're downloading and all that as far as the preview pane. But the preview pane is no longer a risk as far as inadvertently launing viruses or malware attacks. But keep an eye on the internet because you never know when that will change.
Right. Okay. Another question we've got here is there a way to apply the same view to all folders once rather than doing it manually folder by folder?
No, they don't make it easy on us. You have to do it folder by folder. Sorry.
Okay.
You can. I mean, there is an option when you go to. No, I guess that's just asking if you want to make it available for all IMAP folders. I don't think so, but I would not hesitate to Google it just in case. I don't know everything, but generally you have to go folder by folder. Believe me, I would love one-click application too.
Okay. Well, so that's all the questions I have. Is there anything else that you want to share with us other than your contact information?
Sure, I'm happy to throw my contact information up there. If you have any other questions, please feel free to email me. I'm always happy to answer emails. Here, it's right here.
Perfect.
Actually, wait, that's the wrong one. That'll go to the whole crew. Let's go up. I'll add it now. I think those were some of my best tips. I think we did okay. Oh, you can send it to here. Send it to the word training instead. Training@lawtechpartners.com is the email, and that's my phone number there. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Adriana, for the excellent presentation. These are clearly some good tips that seems like folks are implementing right now if they haven't already during this presentation. So that's great. That's what we were aiming for. We will provide a recording of this on our website. And so, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in, and we hope that you'll return next month for another practical webinar for the busy lawyer. And thank you, Adriana.
Of course. Thanks. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
You too.